Between June and August of 1944, roughly 400,000 German soldiers faced the most devastating military defeat in their nation's entire history. Trapped in encirclements, bombed from above, hunted through swamps and forests, these men discovered that 3 years of conquest could unravel in just 8 weeks. Here's what it was really like to survive Germany's worst military disaster. Before we start, if these stories help you sleep, hit like or subscribe, and tell me where you are and what time it is. Comment below. I'm always reading them thinking, wait, people in New Zealand listen to history stories to sleep. Kind of fun seeing all the different places. Alright, we're heading back to summer 1944, deep in the forests of Belarus. But hold on, get yourself comfortable first. I mean it. Fix your pillows, grab that blanket. This one's worth settling in for. Your eyes open to grey light filtering through canvas. For a moment you're not sure where you are. Then it comes back. The dugout. The Eastern Front. 3 years of this now. 3 years since Barbarossa began. Since your boots first touched Soviet soil, and everything you thought you knew about war got tossed into a muddy crater somewhere outside Smolensk. Your name is Heinrich Braun, 24 years old. Corporal in the German 53rd Corps, currently dug in near the city of Vitebsk, which sounds exotic until you realize it's just another collection of bombed-out buildings and nervous civilians and roads that turn to soup every time it rains. June 21st, 1944. Tomorrow marks exactly 3 years since Operation Barbarossa. 3 years since the largest military invasion in human history rolled across these fields and forests. 3 years of advance, retreat, advance again, then mostly retreat. 3 years of watching friends get torn apart by things you can't see coming. Shells, snipers, disease, cold that freezes men where they stand. But right now, in this moment, everything is quiet. And that should probably worry you more than it does. You sit up on your bunk, careful not to bang your head on the timber supports. The dugout smells like damp earth and unwashed men, and the peculiar mustiness of wool that never fully dries. There are 4 others in here with you. Kurt is snoring in the corner, a man who can sleep through artillery barrages but wakes up if someone so much as unwraps a piece of chocolate. Franz is already awake, sitting on his bunk with his boots in his hands, staring at them like they hold some kind of answer. Maybe they do. Your feet can tell you a lot about how the war is going. When your boots fit, when your socks are dry, when there's no blood seeping through the leather. Those are good days. Those are the days you might survive. Today feels like one of those days. You pull on your own boots. They're German issue, which means they're decent quality, which means you've been lucky. Some of the men are wearing Soviet boots taken off corpses because the supply lines are so stretched that replacement gear sometimes takes months to arrive. The Eastern Front has a way of eating equipment. It eats everything. Men, machines, hope. But not today. Today the sun is coming up soft and golden through the trees, and somewhere a bird is singing like it doesn't know there's a war on, and for just this one moment you can almost pretend you're back in Bavaria, almost pretend you're about to walk down to your father's shop and start sorting tools and listening to him complain about the price of steel. You shake off the thought. Dangerous to think like that. Dangerous to remember there was ever anything else. Outside the dugout the morning is cool and damp. Fog hugs the low ground, muffling sounds, turning the trenches into something almost peaceful. You can see maybe 50 meters before everything dissolves into white. Beyond that fog, somewhere out there, are the Soviets. 2.5 million of them if the rumours are true, but the rumours also say they're focused on the south, down in Ukraine, down where Field Marshal Model is holding the line against what everyone expects to be the big Soviet summer offensive. That's where all the action will be. That's where the tanks are going, the reinforcements, the attention of high command. Up here in Belarus, you're practically forgotten, which is fine. Forgotten sounds good right now. Forgotten sounds like survival. You make your way along the trench, nodding to the men on watch. Tired faces, hollow eyes, the look of soldiers who've learned to sleep standing up and eat whatever gets put in front of them without asking questions. These are your brothers now, not by blood, but by something deeper, by shared misery and shared fear and the strange dark humour that grows in places like this. Someone has scratched a calendar into the timber wall of a bunker. Tomorrow's date is circled. June 22nd. 3 years. 3 years since you crossed the border with 2 million other soldiers, certain you'd be home by Christmas. 3 years since you watched Moscow appear on the horizon and then slip away again, always just out of reach. 3 years of learning that Russia is not a country you conquer. Russia is a country that swallows you whole. But you've survived. That counts for something. Out of the original company you deployed with, maybe a dozen men are still alive. The rest are dead or wounded or transferred or simply gone, vanished into the chaos of a war that never stops taking. The trenches here are well built. Good timber supports, proper drainage, firing positions with decent cover. The engineers did solid work. Between your lines and the Soviet positions lies a vast minefield. Thousands of anti-tank and anti-personnel mines buried in the mud and grass. Anyone trying to cross that field would be shredded. That's the theory anyway. You find your sergeant, a man named Richter, drinking Asat's coffee from a battered tin cup. Real coffee disappeared from the supply chain months ago. Now you drink something made from acorns and chicory and probably sadness. Richter nods at you. He's older than you by maybe 10 years, a veteran of the First War who somehow got pulled back into this one. His face looks like it was carved from the same wood as the trench supports, weathered, hard, full of knots. "Anything?" you ask. He shakes his head. "Quiet night." Partisans hit a supply convoy about 20 kilometers west, but nothing on our sector. Partisans. Another word you've learned to hate. The forests here are full of them. Soviet soldiers who slipped through the lines, local peasants who decided they'd rather fight than submit, escaped prisoners, anyone with a reason to kill Germans. They blow up railroad tracks. They ambush supply columns. They make you afraid to walk 5 meters from your position without your rifle ready. The official line is that the partisan problem is under control. The official line is always that everything is under control. Meanwhile, you hear stories of entire units disappearing in the forests, of men found hanging from trees with notes pinned to their chests, of supply depots burning in the night. But that's someone else's problem. Your problem is this trench, this section of line, these men counting on you to keep watch and stay sharp and not get them killed through some stupid mistake. You take your position at the firing step and peer out into the fog. Nothing moves. The silence is almost complete. Just the distant call of that bird, still singing, still oblivious. The Soviets have been quiet for weeks now. Too quiet, some say. But then others point out that they're always quiet before something big. The Russians don't telegraph their punches. They build up in secret, move at night, and then hit you with everything they have all at once. Maskirovka, they call it. Deception. The art of making you look one way while they prepare to hit you from another. But High Command is confident. High Command says the blow will fall in the south. High Command has moved most of the tanks and planes and reserves down to Ukraine. Up here, You're holding a quiet sector with whatever's left. You look down at the minefield stretching before your position. Thousands of mines, weeks of work to lay them. Your main line of defence now that the mobile reserves are gone. A few landmines won't stop the Red Army, Franz said last night, and everyone told him to shut up because nobody wanted to think about that. But he wasn't wrong. Nothing stops the Red Army when they decide to move. You learned that at Stalingrad, at Kursk, in all the grinding battles since. The Soviets don't fight like a normal army. They fight like a force of nature. They absorb losses that would break any other military and just keep coming. Kill 1,000 of them and 1,000 more appear. Destroy their tanks and they build more. The factories behind the Urals never stop producing. The training camps never stop sending men. And now, according to the intelligence reports that filter down to your level, they have 1.6 million soldiers massed somewhere on this front, plus 32,000 artillery pieces, nearly 6,000 tanks, almost 8,000 aircraft. You have trenches and minefields and orders to hold your position. Try not to think about the math. The morning wears on. The fog lifts slowly, revealing the landscape you've come to know too well. Birch forests, swampy lowlands, fields of grass that wave in the wind like a green sea. Beautiful country in its way, beautiful and deadly. You eat breakfast, black bread, a scrape of margarine, some kind of sausage that's mostly filler, hot water that someone is calling tea. Your stomach accepts it all without complaint. It learned long ago not to be picky. Around midday, word comes down the line. Radio intercepts suggest increased partisan activity planned for tonight. Everyone is to stay alert. No one goes anywhere alone. This is not unusual. The partisans are always planning something, but there's a nervous edge to the message this time. Something about the scale of what's being intercepted. 143,000 partisans, someone whispers. That's what intelligence is saying. 143,000 of them, coordinating something big. You try to imagine what that looks like. 143,000 people hiding in the forests, waiting. It doesn't seem possible. But then nothing about this war seems possible until it happens. The afternoon passes. You write a letter to your mother, though you know it might be weeks before it reaches her, if it reaches her at all. The mail service has been unreliable lately. Another sign that things are stretched thin. Dear Mother, you write, everything is fine here. The weather is good and the food is adequate. Please don't worry about me. Give my love to Father and to Anna. All lies, except for the weather. The weather actually is good, which makes you suspicious, because good weather on the Eastern Front usually means something terrible is about to happen. Night falls. You take the evening watch, standing at your position as the stars come out one by one. The sky is enormous here, bigger than anything you remember from home. No light pollution, no city glow. Just darkness and stars and the distant sound of the forest settling into sleep. Somewhere out there, beyond those trees, 2.5 million Soviet soldiers are doing whatever it is they do at night. Sleeping, preparing, waiting for the order that will send them crashing into your lines like a wave against a breakwater. But not tonight. Tonight is quiet. You stand watch until midnight, then hand off to Kurt and crawl back to your bunk. The other men are already asleep, their breathing deep and regular. You close your eyes and try to match their rhythm. Tomorrow is June 22nd, 3 years exactly, an anniversary that means nothing to anyone except the men who were there at the beginning and somehow managed to still be here now. You sleep, and then you don't, because the ground is shaking. Your eyes snap open. For a moment you think it's an earthquake, But then your soldier's brain catches up and you realize what that rumbling is. Artillery. Soviet artillery. And not just a few guns. This sounds like every gun in the world firing at once. You're out of your bunk and grabbing your rifle before you're fully awake. The others are doing the same, Kurt cursing as he fumbles with his boots. Franz already at the dugout entrance, peering out into the night. What time is it? Just past 3. June 22nd. Happy anniversary. The joke falls flat because nobody's laughing. The ground is still shaking, and now you can hear the individual impacts. The crump, crump, crump of shells landing all along the line. The air fills with the smell of cordite and torn earth. You push past Franz and look out at what used to be a quiet sector. The sky is on fire. Along the horizon, as far as you can see in either direction, muzzle flashes light up the darkness like heat lightning. The sound is constant now. A continuous roar that drowns out everything else. You can feel the pressure waves in your chest, each blast a physical force pushing against your ribcage. And then comes a new sound. A sound you've heard before but never like this. A rising howl like a choir of demons, like the sky itself is screaming. Stalin's organ, Katyusha rockets, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Screaming overhead in waves, trailing fire, each one carrying death to wherever it lands. The night becomes day. The rockets paint the darkness orange and red, and everywhere they hit, the earth erupts. You watch a section of trench maybe 200 meters to your left simply disappear, replaced by a fountain of dirt and timber and things you don't want to think about. Everyone into the bunkers, Sergeant Richter is shouting. But you can barely hear him over the noise. You run. Everyone runs. The bombardment goes on and on, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and you lose track because time doesn't work right when the world is ending. Inside the bunker, the air is thick with dust and fear. The walls shake with each impact. Someone is praying. Someone else is crying. You press your back against the timber supports and wait for the shell that has your name on it. It doesn't come. After what feels like hours but is probably less than 60 minutes, the bombardment begins to lift. The impacts become more scattered, the roar fading to a rumble and then to something like silence. And that's when you hear the tanks. Not the heavy growl of your own panzers, the sound you've learned to welcome. This is different, lighter, faster. The distinctive whine of T-34 engines, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, and they're getting closer. You look at Sergeant Richter. He looks back at you, and in his eyes you see something you've never seen there before. Fear. The minefields, someone says. What about the minefields? You stumble out of the bunker to look. The sun is coming up now, grey and thin through the smoke, and what you see makes your stomach drop. Coming across the field, rolling over the torn earth where your minefields used to be, are tanks, Soviet T-34s. But they're not like any T-34s you've seen before. They have something attached to the front, massive metal cylinders, spinning like rolling pins. Mine rollers. They've fitted their tanks with mine rollers. They're just driving straight through your carefully laid defences like they're nothing at all. Behind the tanks comes the infantry, wave after wave of them, emerging from the smoke and fog like ghosts. Thousands of men with rifles and submachine guns and that particular Soviet determination that you've learned to dread. The line is collapsing. You can hear it in the radio chatter, fragmented messages from units all around you. Breakthrough in Sector 7. Position overrun. Requesting immediate support. No support available. Hold your positions, comes the order from somewhere up the chain. Hold at all costs. But holding is not possible. Not against this. Not when the mines don't work and the tanks keep coming and the sky's filled with Soviet aircraft that strafe anything that moves. Heinrich, it's Franz grabbing your arm. We need to go. Now. Go where? The line stretches in both directions and everywhere you look. The same thing is happening. Explosions, gunfire, men running, men falling. The city. We fall back to Vitebsk. There's still a garrison there. We can make a stand. You look at Richter. The sergeant nods. He looks 10 years older than he did last night. Fall back, he orders. Stay together. Get to the city. And so you run. You run toward Vitebsk, toward the illusion of safety, while behind you the Soviet army pours through the gaps in your broken line. You run past burning vehicles and dead men and abandoned equipment. You run through forests that might be full of partisans. You run because stopping means dying. 3 years of conquest, undone in a single night. And you know, with a cold certainty that settles into your bones, that this is only the beginning. Unlike you, lying there in your warm bed with your soft pillow and your clean sheets, you're safe. Heinrich wasn't. The summer of 1944 was about to become the worst catastrophe in German military history, and Heinrich Braun was right in the middle of it. But that's getting ahead of the story. For now, he's running toward a city that will soon become a trap, running from an enemy that has finally learned how to win, and the Soviets, they're just getting started. The road to Vitebsk is a nightmare, not a metaphorical nightmare, an actual living, breathing nightmare that you can smell and taste and feel in your bones. You're running with maybe 40 other men from your shattered company, and the road itself has become a killing ground. Soviet aircraft appear overhead every few minutes, diving low to strafe anything that moves. You learn to listen for the engine sound, that particular whine that means death is coming, and you throw yourself into ditches and behind trees and press your face into the mud while bullets chew up the ground around you. Franz is still beside you. Kurt, too. Sergeant Richter is somewhere ahead, leading what's left of the group through the chaos. Others have joined you along the way, stragglers from units you don't recognize, men with the same hollow look in their eyes. Nobody talks about what happened to the trenches. Nobody talks about the men who didn't make it out. There are some things that words can't carry, and watching your position get overrun in 20 minutes after 3 years of holding it is one of them. The sun climbs higher and the day gets warm, which would be pleasant under any other circumstances. Right now, the heat just makes you sweat, makes your uniform stick to your skin, makes every step harder than the last. Your canteen is half empty, and there's no telling when you'll find more water. Your tongue feels thick and dry. Your lips are cracking. How far to the city? Franz asks between breaths. Maybe 10 kilometers, maybe less. And then what? You don't answer because you don't know. The plan, such as it is, involves reaching Vitebsk and joining the garrison there. Vitebsk is a fortress city now, declared so by Hitler himself. That means it will be defended to the last man. That means reinforcements will come. That means you'll be safe behind its walls. That's the theory anyway. The road is littered with abandoned equipment, trucks with their engines smoking, artillery pieces with no one to man them. Ammunition crates spilled open, bullets scattered across the dirt like seeds. You step over a body and don't look at the face. Keep moving. Don't think. Just keep moving. Around midday you finally see the city. Vitebsk rises from the landscape like a promise. Church spires poking above the tree line, the glint of the western Dvina River curving around its northern edge. It's old, this city. 800 years of history behind those walls, conquered and reconquered a dozen times, always surviving. Maybe it will survive this too. You stumble through the outskirts, past burned-out buildings and nervous civilians peering from windows. The garrison is already active, soldiers moving with purpose, defensive positions being strengthened. An officer directs you toward a collection point where other survivors are gathering. Richter handles the reporting. You slump against a wall and drink the last of your water and try to make your hands stop shaking. Franz sits down beside you. His face is black with soot and his uniform is torn and there's blood on his sleeve that might be his or might belong to someone else. "That was close," he says. "Yeah. You think they'll hold here?" You look around at the city. Stone buildings, narrow streets, good defensive terrain. But you also remember the T-34s rolling through your minefields like they weren't even there. You remember the endless waves of infantry. You remember the sky full of aircraft. Sure, you say, they'll hold. Both of you know it's a lie. But lies are what keep you going sometimes. The next 3 days blur together. June 23rd, you're assigned to a defensive position on the eastern edge of the city. The Soviets probe the defences but don't commit to a full assault. Not yet. They're still busy elsewhere, rolling up the German lines to the north and south, cutting off escape routes. June 24th. Word comes down that the situation is serious. Soviet forces have broken through all along the front. The 3rd Panzer Army to your north is collapsing. The 4th Army to your south is being bypassed. Vitebsk is starting to look less like a fortress and more like a trap. Someone in your position asks why you don't just withdraw. Fall back to the next defensive line. Shorten the front. Basic tactics. Orders from Berlin, comes the answer. The city must be held. Berlin is 1,000 kilometers away. The Soviets are 5. June 25th. The ring closes. You're on the wall when it happens. You can actually see it. The Soviet columns converging from the north and south, meeting somewhere west of the city in a cloud of dust and diesel smoke. Tanks, trucks, endless columns of infantry. They move with a purpose you've rarely seen in 3 years of fighting. This isn't chaos, this is choreography. When the dust clears, there's a continuous line of enemy forces surrounding Vitebsk. 30,000 German soldiers are now trapped inside. You're one of them. The feeling is hard to describe. It's not quite fear, not quite despair. More like watching a door close very slowly, knowing you can't stop it, knowing that once it shuts you'll never open it again. The world outside that ring might as well be on the moon now. The radio crackles with desperate messages, requests for permission to break out, requests for reinforcement, requests for air support. The answers come back the same every time. Hold your position. Help is coming. Help isn't coming. Everyone knows it. But the orders are the orders, and so you hold. The city is designed for defence, you tell yourself. Thick walls, good fields of fire, plenty of supplies. If you can hold out long enough, maybe the situation will change. Maybe the German counterattack will succeed. Maybe the Soviets will overextend themselves. Maybe pigs will sprout wings and fly home to Bavaria. Franz finds you that evening, huddled in a cellar with a handful of other men, eating cold rations and trying not to think about tomorrow. "I heard something," he says. His voice is low, like he's afraid of being overheard. "What?" "Reinhardt's trying to get us out. The general. He's arguing with Berlin, demanding permission to break through the encirclement while there's still time. Hope flickers in your chest, small but warm. If anyone can convince high command, it's Georg Hans Reinhardt. The man commands the 3rd Panzer Army. He knows what he's doing. And? Franz's face falls. Berlin said no. Hitler himself. He wants us to hold Vitebsk no matter what. Something about it being a symbol. Something about the Russian invasion gate. A symbol. You're going to die for a symbol. You think about that for a while. 3 years you've been fighting this war. 3 years of following orders, of trusting that the men making decisions knew what they were doing, and now you're sitting in a cellar surrounded by an army that outnumbers you maybe 50-1, because someone 1,000 kilometers away decided your life is worth less than a symbol. There's a word for that, but you're too tired to say it out loud. The night is quiet. Too quiet. You take a shift on watch, staring out into the darkness where the Soviet campfires flicker like fallen stars. So many of them. An endless constellation of enemies, all waiting for the order to attack. In the distance you can hear the rumble of artillery, other sectors being hit, other units being destroyed. The offensive is still rolling forward, crushing everything in its path, and you're just sitting here waiting for your turn. Morning comes grey and cold despite the summer season. The clouds have rolled in overnight, and there's a mist hanging over the city that smells like smoke and rain. General Gollitzer, the garrison commander, has called a meeting. Word spreads through the ranks. Something is happening. You crowd into a church that's being used as a command post. The pews have been shoved aside to make room for map tables and radio equipment. Officers stand in clusters, their faces grim. Gollwitzer is a small man with glasses and a moustache that looks like it's trying too hard. But when he speaks, the room goes silent. Berlin has given us our orders, he says. We are to hold this city, this fortress. We are to fight to the last man if necessary. He pauses, looks around the room. But I have also been given discretionary authority for tactical operations. What that means is this. Tomorrow night, we attempt a breakout to the west. Those who can fight will lead the way. Those who cannot will follow as best they can. We leave at midnight. A murmur runs through the assembled soldiers. Hope again. Fragile but real. Make no mistake. Gollwitzer continues. This will not be easy. The enemy is strong and they know we're trapped. Many of us will not survive the attempt, but staying here is death. At least out there we have a chance. He's defying orders. You realize this with something like awe. The man is risking a court-martial, maybe a firing squad, because he refuses to let his men die for a symbol. You've never respected an officer more in your life. The day passes in a fever of preparation. Weapons are checked and rechecked. Ammunition is distributed. The wounded are loaded onto whatever vehicles can still move. Everyone who can walk is assigned a position in the breakout column. Letters are written. Last letters probably, though nobody says it out loud. You see men scratching words onto scraps of paper, stuffing them into pockets, hoping against hope that somehow the words will find their way home even if their bodies don't. You write one yourself. Short. Simple. Just telling your mother you love her. What else is there to say? You find yourself near the front with Franz and Kurt and what's left of your original unit. Maybe 15 men out of the 100 you started with. The others are dead or missing or scattered across 100 kilometers of burning countryside. Richter appears looking like death warmed over. He hasn't slept in days. None of you have. Stay close, he says. When we hit the Soviet lines, don't stop for anything. Keep moving west. If we get separated, make for Lapel. That's where the relief force should be. Should be. Yeah, should be. Midnight approaches. The city is quiet except for the distant rumble of artillery and the shuffle of men preparing to move. You check your rifle one more time. 60 rounds in your pouches. 2 grenades on your belt, a bayonet that you've never had to use and hope you never will. Franz is praying. Kurt is smoking a cigarette down to his fingertips. Someone nearby is crying softly, trying not to be heard. You don't pray, and you don't smoke, and you're too scared to cry. So you just stand there, waiting, feeling the weight of the darkness pressing down on you. This is it. This is the moment where you find out if you live or die. The order comes down the line. Move out. And 30,000 men begin to walk into the night. The first few kilometers are almost peaceful. You move in silence, sticking to back roads and forest paths, avoiding the main highways where the Soviets have set up checkpoints. The moon is hidden behind clouds, which is both blessing and curse, hard to see, but hard to be seen. Then the first flares go up, bright white light, floating down on parachutes, turning night into day. And in that light, you can see the Soviet positions, machine gun nests, tank emplacements, infantry dug in and waiting. They knew. Of course they knew. 30,000 men can't move anywhere without someone noticing. The first shots crack out, then more. Then the whole night explodes into chaos. You're running again, always running. Bullets whip past your head and mortars crash around you. And somewhere in the darkness, men are screaming. You don't know if you're running towards something or away from something. You just run. Franz is beside you. Then he's not. You hear him cry out, a sharp grunt of pain, and when you turn he's on the ground clutching his leg. Heinrich, I'm hit. You grab him, try to pull him up. He's heavy, heavier than you expected, and his face is twisted with pain. Leave me. Just go. Shut up. You get him over your shoulder somehow. The weight is crushing, but you don't care. 3 years together. 3 years of watching each other's backs. You're not leaving him now. The next hour is a blur of gunfire and explosions and stumbling through the dark with your friend's blood soaking through your uniform. You lose track of the column, lose track of everything except the desperate need to keep moving. Dawn finds you in a forest surrounded by trees and silence. Franz is unconscious, his breathing shallow. The wound in his leg is bad but not fatal. Assuming you can get him to a doctor. Assuming there are any doctors left. You're alone. No Richter, no Kurt, no one from your unit. Just you and Franz in the endless forest. Somewhere in the distance you can hear gunfire. The breakout is still happening, or maybe it's already failed. Hard to tell from here. You check your rifle. 23 rounds left. 1 grenade. The bayonet still on your belt. A canteen that's empty. A stomach that's screaming for food. Not much, but it's something. The forest around you is birch and pine, dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy. Under different circumstances it would be beautiful. Right now it's just cover, hiding places, potential ambush sites that you need to watch. You tear a strip from your undershirt and bind Franz's leg tighter, trying to slow the bleeding. He groans but doesn't wake up. His face is pale, waxy. He needs a doctor. He needs medicine. He needs things you can't give him. You start walking west, toward Lapel where the relief force should be, toward safety, if such a thing exists anymore. Behind you, Vitebsk burns. 30,000 men tried to escape that night. Most of them didn't make it. The Soviets had been waiting, their forces positioned perfectly to intercept the breakout. Wave after wave of German soldiers ran into prepared defensive positions and were cut down. By the time the sun rose on June 27th, the 53rd Corps had effectively ceased to exist. Those who weren't killed were captured. Those who weren't captured scattered into the forests, hunted by partisans and Soviet patrols. And somewhere in those forests, you kept walking, one foot in front of the other. Franz on your back, west, always west. The war wasn't over, not yet. But for the men of the 53rd Corps, for the defenders of Vitebsk, it might as well have been. 30,000 men, gone, just like that. And the Soviet offensive, it was just getting started. The fall of Vitebsk was only the first domino. More would follow, many more. But you didn't know that then. All you knew was the weight on your back and the pain in your legs and the endless forest stretching before you. One foot, then the other, then the first one again. Your boots are soaked through. Blisters are forming on your heels. Your shoulders ache from carrying Franz. Every muscle in your body is screaming for rest. But rest means death. Rest means the Soviets catch up. Rest means leaving Franz behind. So you don't rest. Keep moving. Don't think. Just keep moving. It's what soldiers do. It's what survivors do. And right now, survival is the only thing that matters. 3 days in the forest. That's how long it takes you to find other Germans. 3 days of walking, 3 days of hiding, 3 days of listening to Franz moan in his sleep and wondering if he's going to make it. His leg is infected now. You can smell it. That sweet, rotten smell that means the flesh is dying. Without medicine, without a doctor, he's got maybe a week, maybe less. You've been rationing what little food you could scavenge. Some hardtack from a dead soldier's pack. A tin of meat that was probably made before the war started. Mushrooms you're about 70% sure aren't poisonous. Water from streams drunk without boiling because you can't risk a fire. Fire means smoke. Smoke means attention. And attention out here means death. The forest is full of partisans. You've seen their signs. Broken branches arranged in patterns. Marks scratched into tree bark. Once, a Soviet flag hanging from a pine, the red fabric bright against the green needles like a warning. Stay away. This is our territory now. You stayed away. On the second night, you heard them. Voices in the darkness speaking Russian, maybe 100 meters from where you'd hidden Franz beneath a fallen log. You pressed yourself into the earth and didn't breathe, didn't move, didn't think. Just lay there with your rifle clutched to your chest and prayed to a god you're not sure you believe in anymore. They passed by, didn't see you. Luck, maybe. Or maybe they were looking for bigger prey. A single German soldier carrying a wounded friend isn't worth much. Not when there are entire convoys to ambush, supply depots to burn, officers to capture. Small blessings. The morning of the third day, you hear engines. Not Soviet engines. German ones. The particular rumble of a Kübelwagen. That little utility vehicle that looks like it was designed by someone who hated comfort. You've never been so happy to hear an ugly sound in your life. You drag Franz toward the road, waving your arms, shouting in German so they don't shoot you by mistake. Friendly fire has killed more men than you want to think about. The vehicle stops. 2 soldiers jump out, rifles raised, faces tight with fear. Everyone is scared now. Everyone shoots first. Don't shoot. German. We're German. 53rd Corps. Vitebsk. The name of the city makes them flinch. They've heard. Everyone's heard by now. One of them lowers his rifle. The other keeps his up a moment longer, then follows. They look almost as bad as you feel. Dirty, exhausted, running on nothing but adrenaline and the stubborn refusal to die. Get in, the driver says. We're heading for the column. Column? What's left of 9th Army? maybe 2 kilometers west. They're trying to reach Minsk. Minsk. That's good. Minsk is a big city. Reinforced. They sent the 5th Panzer Division there, the one with all the Tiger tanks. If anywhere is safe, it's Minsk. You help Franz into the back of the Kübelwagen and climb in after him. The vehicle lurches forward, bouncing over roots and rocks, and for the first time in 3 days you're not walking. Your feet throb with relief. The blisters have burst and reformed and burst again. Your boots are filled with blood and pus. You'll probably lose a toenail or two. But you're alive. Franz is alive. And you're moving toward friendly lines. Small victories. The column is not what you expected. When they said 9th Army, you pictured something organized. Tanks, artillery, proper formations. What you find instead is chaos. Thousands of men streaming west along every road and path, mixed together without regard for unit or rank. Infantry walking beside truck drivers, beside tankers whose tanks are somewhere behind them, burned out or broken down or simply abandoned when the fuel ran out. Officers trying to restore order and failing, wounded men limping along or being carried by friends, the occasional vehicle pushing through the crowd, horn blaring, ignored by men too exhausted to move any faster, and above it all, the constant threat from the sky. Soviet aircraft own the air now. You learned this quickly. Every hour or so, the planes come, sometimes fighters, strafing the column with machine guns, sometimes bombers, dropping their loads on the thickest concentrations of men, sometimes just observation aircraft circling lazily, marking positions for the artillery. When the planes come, everyone scatters, into ditches, behind trees, under vehicles, anywhere that offers cover. And when the planes leave, you count the new bodies and keep moving. Nobody talks about the dead anymore. There are too many of them. You find a medical station set up in a barn just off the main road. It's overwhelmed. Wounded men line the walls, the floor, spill out into the yard. Doctors and medics move between them, doing what they can with supplies that are running out fast. Franz gets a spot on the floor. A medic looks at his leg, shakes his head but cleans the wound and applies fresh bandages. Real bandages, not strips torn from a shirt. He needs surgery, the medic says. That leg has to come off or the infection will spread. Can you do it here? The medic laughs. It's not a happy sound. We don't have anesthesia. We barely have clean water. If I try to amputate in these conditions, he'll die on the table. So what do? Pray. Or get him to a real hospital. There's supposed to be one in Minsk. Minsk again. Everything points to Minsk. You leave Franz in the barn and rejoin the column. Someone has to keep moving. Someone has to find out what's happening. What you learn is not encouraging. The whole front has collapsed. Not just your sector. Everywhere. In the north, 3rd Panzer Army is in pieces. Vitebsk was just the start. Now the Soviets are pushing toward Polotsk, threatening to cut off the retreat routes entirely. What's left of Lee Corps is scattered across 50 kilometers of forest, being hunted down by partisans and regular troops alike. In the south, it's even worse. 9th Army tried to redeploy its tanks to stop the Soviet advance near Bobruisk, but the ground there is swampy, boggy, terrible tank country. Most of the vehicles broke down before they even reached the fighting. Those that made it were overwhelmed by sheer numbers, T-34s by the 100, artillery you couldn't even see, firing from positions miles behind the lines. Bobruisk fell on June 29th, Mogilev the day before, tens of thousands captured, tens of thousands more dead. And 4th Army, the big one, the anchor of the whole line, surrounded, cut off east of Minsk with no way out. 100,000 men trapped in a pocket that's shrinking by the hour. You think about those numbers, 100,000. That's more people than lived in your hometown, your neighbouring towns, and all the villages in between combined. 100,000 men stuck in a closing trap, waiting for an end that everyone can see coming. The war isn't going well. That's been true for a while. But this is different. This isn't a setback. This is a catastrophe. And you're right in the middle of it. The column keeps moving. You keep moving with it. Days blur together. June becomes July. The sun beats down and the dust rises and the planes keep coming and men keep dying. You lose track of how many times you've thrown yourself into a ditch, lose track of how many bodies you've stepped over. Lose track of everything except the simple need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Franz is getting worse. You check on him when you can, but the medical station is moving with the column and supplies are running out. The fresh bandages are gone. They're back to using whatever cloth they can find. His fever is high now. He talks in his sleep, mumbling about home, about his mother, about a girl named Elise you've never heard him mention before. You hold his hand and lie to him. Tell him everything is going to be fine. Tell him you're almost there. You don't know where there is anymore. On July the 2nd, you reach the outskirts of Minsk. The city rises from the flat landscape like something from a dream. Spires and rooftops and the distant glint of the Svislak River winding through its heart. Civilization. Safety. The end of the nightmare, except it's not. Even from here you can see the smoke, columns of black rising from different parts of the city, and in the distance, to the east and to the south, the rumble of artillery. Not ours, theirs. The Soviets are already here. An officer rides past on horseback shouting orders. The column is to bypass the city to the north, avoid the direct route. Soviet tank forces have been spotted on the main roads. Tank forces. That means T-34s. That means the same rolling death that crushed your position back at Vitebsk. Someone grabs your arm. A soldier you don't recognize, wild-eyed and pale. Did you hear? The whole 5th Panzer Division. The Tigers. They're almost gone. What do you mean gone? Destroyed. 2 days of fighting and they went from 150 tanks to less than 20. The Russians just kept coming. Wave after wave. Wore them down to nothing. Your stomach drops. The Tigers were supposed to be invincible. 60 tons of steel and firepower, immune to anything the Soviets could throw at them. If the Tigers are gone, what chance does anyone else have? No chance. That's the answer. No chance at all. But you don't say that. You just nod and keep walking. The column swings north, away from Minsk. Behind you, the sounds of battle grow louder. The city is falling. You can hear it dying. And somewhere in that city, maybe, is the hospital that could have saved Franz's leg. Could have saved his life. Too late now. That night, you camp in a forest clearing with maybe 1,000 other men. No fires, no lights, just exhausted bodies sprawled on the ground, waiting for morning. Franz is next to you. His breathing shallow and rapid. The infection has spread. You can see dark lines creeping up from the wound, following the blood vessels toward his heart. There's a word for that. Blood poisoning. It's fatal without treatment. He doesn't have long. You should sleep. You know this. Tomorrow will be another day of marching, of dodging aircraft, of trying to find a way out of this trap. You need rest. But instead you sit there, holding your friend's hand, watching the stars wheel overhead. 3 years you've known Franz. 3 years of sharing food and water and fear. 3 years of watching each other's backs. And now this. War takes everything. You knew that. You've always known that. But knowing something and feeling it are different things. Franz's hand is hot in yours, fever hot, burning up from the inside. You don't pray. You stopped praying somewhere around Stalingrad, but you do something close to it. You close your eyes and you think about home, about Bavaria, about the mountains and the beer halls and the sound of church bells on Sunday morning. You think about all the things you're fighting for, and you wonder if any of them still exist. The stars don't answer. They never do. You sit there until dawn breaks over the trees, grey and cold despite the summer season. And when the order comes to move, you pick up your rifle and you keep walking. Because that's all you can do. That's all any of you can do. Franz dies on the morning of July 3rd. You're there when it happens, holding his hand like you've been doing for hours. His breathing has been getting shallower all night, each inhale a little weaker than the last, each exhale a little longer. And then, sometime around dawn, it just stops. No final words, no dramatic last gasp. He just goes. One moment your friend is there, and the next he isn't. You sit with the body for a while. You're not sure how long. Time has stopped meaning much. Other soldiers move past, stepping around you like you're a rock in a stream. Nobody asks if you're okay. Nobody offers help. Everyone has their own dead to mourn. Eventually, a sergeant you don't recognize tells you to move. The column is leaving. You can bury him, or you can leave him, but you can't stay here. You bury him. It takes maybe 20 minutes. The ground is soft from recent rain, and you find an entrenching tool abandoned nearby. You dig a hole that's too shallow, barely deep enough to cover him, but it's all you can manage. You wrap Franz in his shelter half, lower him in, and fill the hole back up. No headstone, no cross, just a mound of dark earth beneath a birch tree that looks like every other birch tree in this forest. You should say something, some words, a prayer, maybe, or a poem, or just goodbye. But nothing comes. Your throat is tight and your eyes are burning, and all you can do is stand there, staring at the dirt. Franz Keller, 22 years old. From some small town in Saxony you can't even remember the name of anymore. Liked to fish, talked too much, prayed every night before sleep. Dead now, gone. You pick up your rifle and walk away. The column is already moving when you catch up. Nobody asks where you've been. Nobody mentions Franz. In the chaos of retreat, one more missing face barely registers. You fall in with a group of strangers, infantry from units you've never heard of. Engineers without equipment, artillerymen without guns, everyone mixed together, stripped of rank and unit pride, reduced to the same basic thing, men trying to survive. Somewhere around midday the word spreads through the column like fire through dry grass. We're surrounded. You don't believe it at first. Surrounded how? There are thousands of you. Tens of thousands. An army doesn't just get surrounded, but the rumors keep coming, and eventually an officer confirms it. Soviet forces have linked up west of Minsk. The roads are cut. The only way out is through enemy lines. You're in the pocket now. The pocket, that's what they're calling it. 100,000 men trapped in an area that shrinks by the hour. No supply lines, no reinforcements, no air support. Just you and everyone else, pressed together like cattle in a pen, waiting for the slaughter. That first day inside the pocket, you learn what real hunger feels like. You've been hungry before. Everyone has. The rations in the East were never enough, and there were plenty of times you went to bed with your stomach growling. But this is different. This is hunger as a constant companion. a gnawing emptiness that never goes away. The supply situation collapses almost immediately. Whatever food remained in the column gets distributed, then hoarded, then fought over. You see men wrestling in the dirt over a tin of sardines. See an officer pull his pistol on a private who tried to steal from his pack. See things that would have been unthinkable a week ago become normal. You still have some hardtack, maybe a day's worth if you're careful. You eat it in small pieces, letting each bite dissolve slowly on your tongue to trick your stomach into thinking there's more coming. It doesn't really work, but it's something. Water is easier. There are streams in the forest, and nobody's poisoned them yet. You drink until your belly sloshes, trying to fill the empty space with something. It helps. A little. The second day in the pocket, the attacks intensify. Soviet forces aren't content to just wait you out. They're pressing in from all sides, squeezing the perimeter tighter and tighter. You can hear the fighting constantly now, a continuous rumble of artillery and small arms that never quite stops. Your group gets pushed into a defensive line along a forest road. Dig in, someone orders, so you dig. Shallow foxholes scraped into the earth with whatever tools you can find. Some men use their helmets. Some use their bare hands. The position isn't good. The trees provide some cover, but the road is too exposed. If tanks come, you're dead. If aircraft spot you, you're dead. If enough infantry attack at once, you're probably dead then too. But it's the position you've got, so you hold it. The first attack comes that afternoon. Soviet infantry, maybe a company's worth, advancing through the trees on your left flank. You hear them before you see them. Branches snapping, voices calling to each other in Russian. Then the shooting starts. Your rifle kicks against your shoulder. Once, twice, 3 times. You're not even sure you're hitting anything. Just aiming at movement and pulling the trigger, trying to put enough lead in the air to make them keep their heads down. It works. Sort of. The attack stalls, then falls back. You count maybe a dozen Soviet bodies in the undergrowth. Your side lost half that many. A victory technically, but you know they'll be back. They have the numbers, they have the supplies, they have time. You have none of those things. That night someone starts a fire. It's against orders. Fires draw attention. Fires get you killed. But the night is cold despite the season, and morale is so low that nobody stops it. Men gather around the flames, warming their hands, staring into the orange glow like it holds some kind of answer. You join them. Not because you're cold, because being alone feels worse than being warm. The faces around the fire are strangers mostly, men from units you've never served with. Different ranks, different ages, different backgrounds, united now by nothing except geography. One of them starts talking. A thin man with a bandage wrapped around his head covering one eye. He's from 4th Army, he says. Was east of Minsk when the pocket closed. Had to fight his way in. Fight your way in? Someone asks. Why would you do that? The thin man shrugs. Seemed safer inside. At least here there's other Germans. Out there it's just Russians and partisans. Nobody argues with that logic. Another man speaks up. Older, grey-haired, with sergeant's stripes barely visible under the dirt on his sleeve. He was at Stalingrad, he says. Got out on one of the last planes before the surrender. This is worse, he says quietly. Worse than Stalingrad? At Stalingrad we had hope. We thought relief was coming. We thought the Führer would save us. The sergeant's voice is flat, emotionless. Here, nobody's coming. We all know it. We just won't say it. Silence around the fire. The flames crackle and pop. Somewhere in the distance, artillery thuds. You think about his words. Nobody's coming. You've known it, somewhere deep down, since the first Soviet shells fell on your position. But hearing it said aloud makes it real in a way it wasn't before. Nobody's coming. You're going to die here. The thought should terrify you. Maybe it would have. Once. Back when you were young and naive and thought that bravery meant something. Now it just feels like another fact. The sky is blue. Water is wet. You're going to die in a forest in Belarus. You stare into the fire and wait for fear to come. It doesn't. Maybe you're too tired. Maybe you've seen too much. Or maybe, after Franz, after everything, you just don't have enough left inside you to care. The fire burns down to embers. Men drift away, back to their holes, back to whatever passes for sleep these days. You stay a while longer, watching the last coals glow and fade. When you finally lie down, you don't dream. You haven't dreamed in days, just black nothing hour after hour until the sound of gunfire drags you back to consciousness. Morning in the pocket, day 3 or 4. You're losing count. The perimeter has shrunk overnight. You can tell by the sound of the fighting. It's closer now. What used to be distant artillery is becoming distinct rifle shots. What used to be somewhere over there is becoming right here. Your group gets orders to move, fall back to a new position. The line you held yesterday has been abandoned, too exposed, too hard to defend. The pocket is contracting, pulling in on itself like a wounded animal. You gather your things. Rifle, ammunition, canteen, the sum total of everything you own in the world. Franz's letters are still in your pocket. You found them when you buried him, tucked into his tunic. Letters from his mother. Letters from that girl, Elise. You should have left them with his body, but you didn't. Maybe, if you survive, you can send them to his family. Let them know what happened. Let them know he wasn't alone at the end. If you survive. That's a big if. The new position is a village, or what used to be a village. The buildings are mostly rubble now, collapsed by artillery or burned by one side or the other. But the stone walls provide cover, and there's a well in the centre that still has water. You dig in among the ruins, find a cellar that's mostly intact with thick walls and a narrow entrance. A good defensive position. Hard to hit, easy to hold, at least until the tanks come. You spend the afternoon improving the position, stacking rubble to create firing points, clearing fields of view, setting up the one machine gun your group still has, an MG42 with maybe 200 rounds left. Nobody talks about how few supplies you have. It's obvious to everyone. The ammunition is running out. The food is gone. The only medical supplies left are bandages torn from the dead. This is how it ends. Not with a dramatic last stand. Just a slow grinding down, resource by resource, man by man, until there's nothing left. You eat your last hardtack that evening, a single piece, broken in half to make it feel like more. Your stomach cramps around it, demanding more, but there is no more. Tomorrow you'll have to find something else, or not eat at all. Funny. A week ago you were complaining about the monotony of army rations, the same tasteless bread every day, the same thin soup. Now you'd kill for that bread, literally kill. War does things to you, changes you, turns you into something you wouldn't recognize. You settle into your cellar as darkness falls. The sounds of battle fade to occasional shots, distant explosions. Everyone is tired. Everyone is waiting. Tomorrow will bring more fighting, more dying, more of this slow collapse. But that's tomorrow. Right now, in this cellar, in this ruined village, in this shrinking pocket of doomed men, you're still alive. Your eyes close. and the darkness takes you. You wake to the sound of someone crying, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, broken sound coming from somewhere in the darkness of the cellar. A man weeping in the way men weep when they think nobody can hear them. You don't move, don't speak, just lie there on the cold stone floor and listen. After a while it stops. Whoever it was pulls himself together, swallows it down, locks it away. The same thing everyone's been doing for days now, feeling everything and showing nothing. Grey light filters through the cellar entrance. Morning again. Another day in the pocket. You sit up slowly. Your body aches in ways you've stopped cataloguing. The hunger has settled into a dull constant now, not the sharp pangs of before, but something deeper. Your body eating itself, muscle and fat dissolving to keep you moving. There's a puddle of rainwater near the entrance. You cup your hands and drink. It tastes like dirt and stone and something faintly metallic. You drink anyway. Outside, the village is stirring, men emerging from their holes and cellars, blinking in the early light like creatures crawling out of the earth, which in a way you are. The fighting has been quiet overnight. That's not good. Quiet usually means they're repositioning, bringing up fresh troops, preparing for another push. You find the sergeant from 4th Army, the Stalingrad survivor. He's become something like a leader for your little group, though nobody officially appointed him. Just happened naturally, men gravitating toward whoever seems to know what they're doing. What's the situation? He shakes his head. Bad. The perimeter's down to maybe 15 kilometers across. Soviet tanks broke through on the southern edge last night, pushed us back another 2 kilometers before we stopped them. 15 kilometers. You could walk that in a few hours. That's all that's left of the pocket. 100,000 men crammed into an area smaller than your hometown. There's talk of a breakout, the sergeant continues. Tonight, General Müller is organizing it. Müller. You've heard the name. Lieutenant General Vincenz Müller, acting commander of what's left of 4th Army. One of the senior officers still alive in the pocket. A breakout. The word sounds almost hopeful. Almost. Where? West. Toward the main German lines. If there still are main German lines, what are our chances? The sergeant looks at you for a long moment. His eyes are tired. Not just physically tired. Tired in a way that goes deeper than sleep can fix. Better than staying here, he says finally. That's all I know. Better than staying here. That's not exactly reassuring. But it's something. You spend the day preparing, cleaning your rifle, counting your remaining ammunition. 14 rounds, that's it. 14 chances to defend yourself before you're down to a bayonet and whatever rocks you can find. Some of the men are fashioning weapons from debris, sharpened pieces of metal, clubs made from broken furniture, desperation tools for desperate times. You watch them work and try not to think about what it means that this is what your army has come to. The afternoon brings another attack. Soviet infantry probing the perimeter, looking for weak points. Your group isn't directly involved, but you can hear the fighting. Closer than yesterday. Always closer. Someone finds a dead horse in one of the ruined buildings. Been there a few days, judging by the smell. But meat is meat, and hungry men aren't picky. You get a piece. Maybe a 1/4 pound of grey, stringy flesh that you cook over a tiny fire hidden in the cellar. It tastes like rot and desperation. You eat every bite. Evening comes slowly. The summer sun hangs in the sky like it doesn't want to leave, stretching the daylight hours into something almost cruel. You want darkness. Need it. The breakout can't start until dark. Finally, the light begins to fade. Men gather in small groups throughout the village. Weapons checked. Final preparations made. Nobody speaks much. What is there to say? The sergeant briefs your group. We move at midnight. Head due west. Stay quiet. Don't stop for anything. If you get separated, keep moving west. Find your own way through. Find your own way through. Like it's that simple. Like the Soviets won't have every road blocked, every clearing covered, every approach watched. But what choice do you have? None. That's the answer. No choice at all. Midnight arrives without fanfare. No signal flare. No dramatic order. Just a quiet word passed from man to man, and then you're moving. Thousands of you. Tens of thousands, maybe. Streaming out of the pocket in ragged columns, heading west into the darkness. The first hour goes well. You move through forest, staying off the roads, navigating by compass and stars. The man ahead of you is just a shadow, and you're just a shadow to whoever's behind you. A chain of ghosts drifting through the trees. Then the shooting starts. It comes from the left flank first. Machine gun fire, the distinctive ripping sound of Soviet weapons. Then from ahead. Then from everywhere. They knew. Of course they knew. 100,000 men don't move without someone noticing. The Soviets have been waiting. The column dissolves into chaos. Men scattering in every direction, seeking cover, returning fire, dying. You throw yourself behind a fallen log and press your face into the dirt as bullets snap overhead. Someone is screaming. Someone is always screaming now. You crawl forward, moving by instinct more than thought. Keep moving. That's what the sergeant said. Don't stop for anything. A flare goes up, bathing everything in harsh white light. For a moment you can see the carnage clearly. Bodies everywhere, men running, men falling. The neat columns have become a swirling mass of panic and death. The flare dies. Darkness returns. You keep crawling. Hours pass, or maybe minutes. Time has stopped making sense. You move and hide and move again. Always west, always toward where the German lines are supposed to be. The sounds of battle fade behind you. Ahead, the forest is quieter. Maybe you've made it through. Maybe you've broken out. Then you hear the tanks, the rumble of engines, the squeak of treads, coming from the west, coming from where safety was supposed to be. Soviet armor. They're behind you now, cutting off the retreat. The breakout has failed. You stop moving. Crouch in the undergrowth and listen as the tanks roll past, maybe 50 meters away. If they had infantry with them, you'd be dead. But they don't. They're racing to close the pocket, not to hunt down stragglers. Small mercies. When the tanks are gone, you take stock. You're alone, separated from your group, from everyone. Just you and your rifle and 13 rounds of ammunition. 13. You used one during the firefight. You don't even remember pulling the trigger. The breakout has failed. You know this without being told. That volume of fire, that many troops waiting. Most of the men who tried to break through are dead or captured. The rest, like you, are scattered across kilometers of hostile forest. What do you do now? For a long moment, you just sit there. The question feels too big. The situation too hopeless. Every direction leads to death or captivity. There's no way out. Then slowly something stirs in your chest. Not hope, exactly. Something smaller than that. Stubbornness, maybe. The same stubborn refusal to die that's kept you going since Vitebsk. You stand up, pick a direction. West, still west, because that's the only direction that matters, and you start walking. Dawn finds you at the edge of a swamp. The ground has been getting softer for the past hour, the trees changing from birch and pine to something darker, more tangled. Now you stand at the border of a genuine marshland, all dark water and reed beds and the buzz of insects. You can't go through. That much is obvious. The water looks deep and you don't know where the solid ground is. One wrong step and you sink. You turn north, skirting the edge of the swamp, looking for a way around. The morning is quiet. No gunfire, no aircraft. Just the sounds of the marsh waking up. Frogs calling to each other, birds flitting through the reeds, a snake sliding away from your footsteps, leaving a trail in the mud. It's almost peaceful, almost beautiful. You stop to rest near a cluster of willows. Your legs won't carry you much further without a break. The hunger and exhaustion have caught up, turning your muscles to water. Sleep comes without warning. One moment you're sitting against a tree trunk watching the swamp. The next you're somewhere else entirely. You dream of home, Bavaria, the mountains rising green and white against a blue sky. Your mother's kitchen, warm and fragrant with the smell of baking bread. Your father's workshop, sawdust on the floor, tools hanging in neat rows on the wall. Simple things, ordinary things, the small details of a life that feels like it belonged to someone else now. You wake to the sound of voices, Russian voices, close. Every muscle tenses. Your hand finds your rifle, finger moving to the trigger. But you don't move, don't breathe, just lie there in the willows and listen. The voices are coming from the south, a patrol maybe, or a work party, moving along the edge of the swamp coming your direction. You press yourself deeper into the vegetation. The willows provide some cover, but not much. If they come this way, if they're looking carefully, they'll find you. The voices get closer. You can make out individual words now. Not that you understand much Russian. Just enough to know they're talking, laughing at something. Relaxed, not hunting. Closer, closer. Then, impossibly, they start to fade, moving away. North, around the swamp but on a different path, missing you by maybe 20 meters. You don't move until the voices are completely gone. Then you let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. Close, so close. You lie there for a long time, listening to your heart pound, waiting for the shaking in your hands to stop. When you finally get up, the sun is past noon. You've lost half a day, but you're still alive. Still alive. You keep moving. The next few days blur together. Walking, hiding, drinking from streams and eating whatever you can find. Berries that taste bitter but don't make you sick. Mushrooms that you're about 60% sure are safe. Once, a rabbit you managed to kill with a rock. You've become something less than human. An animal surviving on instinct, thinking in terms of food, water, shelter, danger, safety, run, hide, wait. The war has become abstract. You don't think about strategy or objectives or the fate of Germany anymore. Just the next step, the next meal, the next place to hide. On the third day after the failed breakout, you stumble into a group of German soldiers. There are maybe 40 of them, gathered in a forest clearing. Mixed units, mixed ranks, same desperate situation as you. They've been trying to find a way west, same as you, having about as much luck. You join them. Not because you think it improves your chances, just because being alone is harder. Their leader is a major, young for his rank, probably promoted during the chaos of the retreat. He's doing his best, but you can see the doubt in his eyes, the same doubt everyone feels. We keep moving west, he says. Probe for weak points. There has to be a gap somewhere. Nobody argues. Nobody believes it either. But what else is there to do? That night, You sleep surrounded by other men for the first time in days. The warmth of bodies pressed close, the sound of breathing, the small comfort of knowing you're not completely alone. It's not much, but right now, it's everything. The group shrinks every day, not through combat, not always. Sometimes men just disappear in the night, slip away into the darkness, choosing to take their chances alone rather than wait for whatever's coming. You can't blame them. You've thought about it yourself, but you stay. Something keeps you here, with these strangers who've become the closest thing to family you have left. Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's hope. Maybe you're just too tired to strike out on your own again. The Major does his best, sends out scouts, probes the Soviet lines, tries to find that gap, that weakness, that miracle path to safety. They come back with the same report every time. No way through. The ring is solid. July 5th, July 6th. The days crawl by. Food becomes the only thing anyone thinks about. The forest has been picked clean, every berry bush stripped, every edible plant dug up. The group has started digging for roots, anything with calories, anything to quiet the constant ache in your belly. Someone catches a fish, a small thing, barely bigger than your hand. 40 men watch as it's divided into portions so tiny they're almost symbolic. Your share is maybe 2 bites. You chew slowly, making it last, tasting mud and scales and something faintly like hope. On the morning of July 7th, the Major calls everyone together. His face is grey. Not just tired now. Something else. Something that looks like defeat finally catching up. "I've made a decision," he says. His voice is steady, but you can hear the effort it takes to keep it that way. "We can't break out. We've tried. There's no way through. Nobody speaks. Nobody needs to." Everyone's known this for days. The Soviets have offered terms, the Major continues. Surrender with guarantees of fair treatment according to the Geneva Convention. Medical care for the wounded. Food. Water. He pauses, looks around at the faces watching him. Hollow-eyed, starving, barely recognizable as soldiers anymore. "I won't order anyone to surrender. That's a choice each man has to make for himself. But I'm telling you what I'm going to do. Tomorrow morning I'm walking out of this forest with a white flag. Anyone who wants to come with me is welcome." Silence. Then slowly murmurs. Men turning to each other, discussing, arguing, some angry, some relieved. Most just numb. You don't say anything. Just stand there and let the reality wash over you. Surrender. The word has weight. It means different things to different people. For some, it's the end of honor, the ultimate failure. Death would be preferable. For others, it's survival. A chance to see home again someday. A way out of this endless nightmare. For you, you're not sure anymore. The war has stripped away so many of the beliefs you started with. Duty, honor, fatherland. They're just words now. Empty sounds that don't mean much when you're starving in a forest surrounded by enemies. What matters is simpler than that. Living or dying, that's all. You think about Franz, about Kurt, about all the men you've watched die over the past 2 weeks. Good men, brave men, dead now, their bodies rotting in ditches and forests across Belarus. Is their sacrifice honoured by you dying too? Or is it honoured by you surviving, by carrying their memory forward, by being the one who makes it home to tell the story? You don't know. You're too tired to know. That night you don't sleep. You sit with your back against a tree and watch the stars wheel overhead. The same stars you watched the night Franz died. The same stars that hung over your home in Bavaria, over every place you've ever been. Constant. Unchanged. indifferent to the suffering below. Around you, the camp is quiet. Some men are praying. Some are writing letters they'll probably never send. Some are just sitting, like you, staring at nothing. A soldier settles down next to you. Young, barely 20 if that. He's got the look of someone who wants to talk but doesn't know how to start. You wait. "I don't want to surrender," he says finally. His voice is barely a whisper. "My father fought in the last war. He told me stories about Soviet captivity, the camps, the cold, the hunger." You nod. "You've heard the stories too. But I don't want to die either," the young soldier continues. His hands are shaking, not from cold, from fear. "I thought I was ready for that. When I joined up, I thought I understood what it meant. But I don't. I'm not ready." He looks at you with eyes that are asking for something. Guidance, maybe. Reassurance. Permission. You're quiet for a long moment. What can you say? What wisdom do you have to offer? None. You're just as lost as he is. But you try anyway. "I don't think anyone's ever ready," you say slowly. "To die, I mean. Maybe some people pretend they are. But when it comes down to it, we all want to live. That's just how we're built." The young soldier is listening intently, hanging on your words like they matter. "Surrendering doesn't make you a coward," you continue. "Neither does being afraid. A coward is someone who lets fear make him hurt other people, who abandons his friends, who betrays his own conscience, just wanting to survive. That's not cowardice. That's being human. You're not sure if you believe what you're saying, but it sounds right." And the young soldier seems to need to hear it. He nods slowly. "Thanks," he says. And then, after a pause, "What are you going to do?" You look up at the stars again. Constant. Unchanged. "I'm going to surrender," you say. "And then I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive. And someday, if I'm lucky, I'm going to go home." The young soldier nods again. "Okay," he says. "Okay." He doesn't say anything else. Just sits there beside you, taking comfort in the presence of another human being. You let him. It costs you nothing, and right now, everyone needs whatever small comforts they can find. Morning comes too soon. The Major is true to his word. As the sun clears the treetops, he gathers the group. Most have decided to surrender. A few have slipped away in the night, choosing their own path. You don't judge them. Everyone has to make their own choice. Someone has fashioned a white flag from a torn undershirt tied to a stick. It hangs limp in the still morning air. Not exactly inspiring, but it'll do. The Major leads the way. The rest of you follow, a ragged column of scarecrows in tattered uniforms. Nobody speaks. The only sound is feet shuffling through the underbrush. You walk for maybe an hour. Then the trees thin out, and you see them. Soviet soldiers. A lot of them. Lined up along a road, weapons ready, watching your approach. Your heart pounds. This is the moment, the point of no return. In a few minutes, you'll either be a prisoner or a corpse. The Major stops, raises his hands. The white flag flutters weakly. For a long moment, nothing happens. The Soviets just watch, fingers on triggers, ready for anything. Then an officer steps forward, says something in Russian. One of the soldiers translates, weapons on the ground. Slowly, no sudden movements. You unsling your rifle, set it down gently in the grass. Around you, others do the same. The clatter of metal on earth, the sound of an army laying down its arms. The young soldier from last night is beside you. His hands are shaking again. You put a hand on his shoulder. Steady. "It's over," you say quietly. "We made it." He nods. Tears are running down his face, cutting tracks through the dirt. He's not the only one crying. Grown men, hardened soldiers, weeping with exhaustion and relief and grief all mixed together. The Soviets move forward, start separating you into groups, officers over here, enlisted men over there, wounded to the side. You go where they point, do what they say, offer no resistance. A Soviet soldier pats you down, removes your bayonet, your canteen, the letters from Franz's pocket. He glances at the letters, shrugs, hands them back. Small mercy. You're herded into a column with maybe 200 other men. Someone says you're heading east, toward the rear areas, toward whatever comes next. The column starts moving. You put one foot in front of the other, the same motion you've been making for weeks now. Only the direction has changed. Behind you, the forest fades into the distance, the pocket, the trap, the killing ground. All of it becoming memory. Ahead, the road stretches eastward, toward captivity, toward uncertainty, toward a future you can't imagine, but a future at least. That's more than a lot of men got. You walk. The first day as a prisoner is almost peaceful. Strange to say, but it's true. The constant fear is gone, the desperate scrambling for survival, the moment-to-moment terror of not knowing if the next second will be your last. All of that is over now. Your fate is out of your hands. There's a strange freedom in that, a weight lifted. These Soviets give you water, real water, from canteens, as much as you can drink. Some men make themselves sick, gulping too fast after days of rationing. You force yourself to go slow, small sips, letting your shrunken stomach adjust. Food comes later, black bread and some kind of thin soup. It tastes like the finest meal you've ever had. Your body practically vibrates with gratitude as the calories hit your system. You sleep that night in a field, surrounded by other prisoners. No shelter, no blankets, just the grass beneath you and the stars above. But you sleep deeply, dreamlessly, the kind of sleep that only comes when you've pushed your body past every limit it has. Morning brings more walking. The column has grown. Thousands now streaming eastward. Men from every unit, every corner of the pocket, the remnants of an army. You march through villages where civilians watch from doorways. Some spit, some curse. Most just stare with hard, empty eyes. You don't blame them. You've seen what the occupation did to this country. The burned villages, the mass graves. The horrors that no one talked about but everyone knew were happening. This is the price. This is what defeat looks like. On the second day, you pass a group of high-ranking officers being loaded onto trucks. One of them catches your eye, a general by his insignia, thin and exhausted like everyone else, but still carrying himself with a certain dignity. Someone whispers the name, Müller, General Müller, the one who ordered the surrender. You watch as he climbs into the truck. His face is blank, unreadable. Whatever he's feeling, he's not showing it. The truck drives away, carrying him toward Moscow, toward interrogations and propaganda, and a fate that history will judge. You never see him again. But you remember his face, the face of a man who made an impossible choice, who decided that living was better than dying, even if it meant being called a traitor by some. You're not sure if he was right. Maybe nobody is, but you're alive, and right now, that has to be enough. The column keeps moving. You keep moving with it. East, always east, toward whatever comes next. The trains come on the fifth day. Cattle cars, mostly. Long wooden boxes on wheels designed for livestock, now repurposed for a different kind of cargo. You're packed in tight, maybe 80 men to a car built for 40 animals, standing room only, no space to sit, barely space to breathe. The doors slide shut with a sound like a coffin closing. Darkness, heat, the smell of unwashed bodies pressed together, of fear, sweat and sickness and something else underneath. Something you don't want to think about too hard. The train lurches into motion. You grab onto the man next to you for balance. He grabs onto someone else, a human chain, swaying together as the car rocks and rattles eastward. Hours pass, or maybe days. Hard to tell in the darkness. There's a bucket in the corner for waste. It fills up fast. The smell becomes unbearable. Then somehow you get used to it. The human body can adapt to almost anything given enough time. Water comes through cracks in the walls when it rains. Men press their faces to the wood, licking the moisture, fighting for position near the gaps. You get a few drops, enough to wet your lips, not enough to matter. Some men don't make it. You feel them go limp, slumping against the bodies around them. There's nowhere to put them. They stay where they fall, held upright by the press of the living. Nobody talks much. What is there to say? You close your eyes and try to think of home, the mountains, the clean air, the taste of fresh water from a spring. Anything but this. The train stops sometimes. You can hear voices outside, the clang of metal, the hiss of steam. But the doors don't open. You just wait, pressed together in the darkness until the motion starts again. Time loses meaning. You drift in and out of something that isn't quite sleep. More like a stupor, a shutdown of everything that isn't essential for survival. Your mind goes somewhere else and leaves your body behind. When the doors finally open, the light is blinding. You stumble out onto a platform, legs cramping, eyes streaming. Fresh air hits your lungs and you gasp like a drowning man breaking the surface. Around you, other men are doing the same. Emerging from the cattle cars in a daze, blinking and squinting and trying to remember how to be human. A Soviet officer is shouting instructions. You don't understand the words, but the meaning is clear enough. Form up, get in line, move, you move. The platform is somewhere outside a city. You can see buildings in the distance, church domes glinting in the sunlight. A Soviet soldier near you says something to another, and you catch one word you recognize. Moskva. Moscow. Your stomach drops. Moscow. The heart of the Soviet Union, the capital of everything Germany has been fighting against for 3 years. They've brought you here for a reason. That much is obvious. Prisoners don't get transported 1,000 kilometers just to be put in a camp. There's something planned, something public. You don't know what yet, but you're going to find out. The next few days are a blur of holding areas and processing, names taken, ranks recorded, brief medical checks that mostly consist of someone looking at you and deciding you're not about to die immediately. They feed you. Real food, not the scraps you've been surviving on. Bread that's almost fresh. Soup with actual vegetables floating in it. Your body doesn't know what to do with so many calories. Some men get sick, their shrunken stomachs rebelling against the sudden abundance. You eat slowly, carefully, let your system adjust, and you wait. The rumours start almost immediately. We're going to be paraded, someone says, through the streets. They want to show us off, like trophies, like proof of victory. The idea should fill you with shame. Maybe it does, somewhere deep down, but mostly you're just tired. Too tired to feel much of anything anymore. July 17th, 1944. They wake you before dawn, get you formed up in long columns, thousands of men stretching back as far as you can see. Someone says there are 50,000 of you. 60,000. Numbers that don't mean much when you're just one body in an endless sea of bodies. Officers at the front, generals, some of them, men who commanded armies now shuffling along like everyone else. The war has a way of levelling things. The march begins as the sun clears the rooftops. Moscow spreads out around you. Wide boulevards, grand buildings, monuments to Soviet power rising against the sky. It's beautiful in a way. You've never seen anything quite like it. And everywhere, people. They line the streets 10 deep, 20 deep, hundreds of thousands of them, maybe millions. Watching silently as you pass, you expected hatred, expected screaming and cursing, thrown objects, maybe violence. You've been told your whole life that these people are subhuman, that they'd tear you apart given the chance. But that's not what happens. They just watch. Faces blank, eyes tracking the endless columns of defeated men. Some of the women are crying, not with joy, something else, something that looks almost like pity. An old woman near the front of the crowd makes the sign of the cross as you pass. Her lips are moving, praying maybe. For you or against you, you can't tell. A child points and asks a question. The mother shushes him, pulls him back. This silence is worse than screaming would have been. It presses down on you, heavy and suffocating. This silence of people who have suffered and are watching the instruments of their suffering finally brought low. You understand, in that moment, what this march really is. Not just propaganda, not just a victory display. It's catharsis. It's an entire nation watching its nightmare walk past in chains. It's closure, and you're part of it. One face among 50,000, one small piece of a very large humiliation. The march goes on for hours. Your feet develop new blisters on top of old ones. Your legs burn. Your back aches. But you keep walking because what else can you do? Some men collapse. Soviet soldiers pick them up, put them in trucks, carry them along. The column doesn't stop, can't stop. The whole city is watching. You pass through squares and down avenues, past monuments to Lenin and Stalin, their stone faces gazing down with cold indifference, past buildings scarred by war, windows blown out, walls pockmarked with old bullet holes, past blocks of apartments where ordinary people live ordinary lives, disrupted now by this extraordinary procession of the defeated, and always the crowds, watching, waiting, bearing witness. Somewhere around midday you notice the trucks. They're following behind the column, big vehicles with tanks of water spraying the streets as they go, washing away your footprints, cleaning the pavement after you pass. The symbolism isn't subtle. You're filth, and they are removing every trace of you. It should hurt. Maybe it does. But you're beyond feeling much of anything now. Just one foot in front of the other. Just keep moving. Just survive. The young soldier from the forest is somewhere behind you. You caught a glimpse of him earlier, still alive, still walking. You're glad. One small piece of good news in a sea of bad. By late afternoon, the march finally ends. You're herded into a holding area, some kind of stadium or fairground, you're not sure. Fenced in, guarded. But there's water and food and space to sit down. You collapse onto the ground and don't move for a long time. Around you, other men are doing the same, lying in heaps too exhausted to speak. The march has taken everything out of you, but you're still alive, still breathing, still here. The young soldier finds you as evening falls, sits down beside you without a word. His face is blank, shell-shocked, the same look everyone wears now. You sit together in silence for a while. watching the sun set over Moscow, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. That was something, the young soldier says finally. His voice is hoarse, barely a whisper. Yeah, you agree. That was something. Neither of you has the words to say what it really was. Maybe those words don't exist. You're a prisoner of war now, officially, documented, paraded through the enemy capital for the world to see. Whatever comes next, that fact won't change. You've been marked, branded, but you're alive. And somewhere, far to the west, your home is still there. Your family, the mountains and the valleys and the life you used to have. Maybe someday you'll see them again. Maybe not. The future is uncertain, full of dangers you can't predict. But right now, in this moment, the sun is setting and you're still breathing, and the worst might be over. Or maybe it's just beginning. You don't know, can't know. All you can do is wait and see. Night falls over Moscow. The guards light fires around the perimeter, not for warmth but for visibility, keeping watch, keeping you contained. You lie back on the hard ground and look up at the stars, the same stars you watched from the forest, the same stars that hung over Vitebsk, over Minsk, over every hellish kilometre of this retreat. Constant, unchanged, indifferent. You wonder if your mother is looking at these same stars right now, wondering where you are, if you're alive or dead. You hope someone tells her, eventually, that you survived, that you're a prisoner but breathing, that there's still hope. The young soldier is asleep beside you. His breathing is steady, peaceful, the first real rest either of you has had in weeks. You should sleep too. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new uncertainties. You'll need your strength, but for a little while longer, you just lie there, watching the stars, remembering. Franz, who believed in God and died in a forest far from home. Kurt, who went for coffee and never came back. Richter and Weber and Schmidt and all the others whose names you never learned. The thousands upon thousands who didn't make it this far. You carry them now, their memories, their stories, the fact that they existed, that they lived and loved and feared just like you. That's something. Maybe that's everything. You close your eyes, and finally, mercifully, sleep comes. The days after the parade settle into a strange kind of rhythm. You're moved from the stadium to a proper camp, rows of wooden barracks surrounded by wire fencing. Guards at the gates, a routine of morning roll calls and work details and meals that are small but regular. It's not comfortable. The bunks are hard, the food is thin, the work is exhausting. But compared to the forest, compared to the pocket, compared to everything that came before, it feels almost like peace. You learn to navigate the camp's hierarchies, which guards to avoid, which prisoners to trust, where to find an extra scrap of bread, a warmer spot to sleep, a moment of privacy in a place designed to strip privacy away. The young soldier stays close. You've learned his name by now. Erich, 18 years old, from a village near Hamburg, drafted 6 months ago, sent east, caught in the collapse like everyone else. He looks to you for guidance still. You're not sure why. You're only 6 years older, and you don't feel wise. Just tired, just lucky, in a grim sort of way. But you do what you can. Show him the ropes, keep him out of trouble. It gives you something to focus on besides your own thoughts, and your thoughts are heavy these days. News filters into the camp slowly. Fragments of information pass between prisoners, gleaned from guards who talk too freely, pieced together from the propaganda broadcasts that play on loudspeakers every evening. The war continues, but not the way it was. Operation Bagration didn't just destroy Army Group Center, it broke something fundamental. The entire German position in the east has shifted, collapsed inward like a building with its foundations knocked away. The Soviets have taken all of Belarus. They're pushing into Poland now, into the Baltic states, into territory that Germany held for years. The front line that seemed so stable in May is now hundreds of kilometers to the west, and the losses, God, the losses. 400,000 men, that's what someone said. 400,000 German soldiers killed, wounded or captured in 2 months. 28 divisions effectively erased from existence. An entire army group gone. You try to wrap your head around that number. 400,000. It's too big, too abstract. You can't picture 400,000 faces, 400,000 lives, 400,000 families getting telegrams that begin with the words, "We regret to inform you." So you don't try. You just think about the ones you knew. Franz, with his prayers and his letters and his quiet faith. Kurt, who never did get that coffee. Sergeant Richter, Weber the radio man, Schmidt the cook. The men of Licourt who held the line at Vitebsk until there was no line left to hold. The thousands in the forest. The tens of thousands in the pocket. The ones who didn't make it onto the cattle cars, who didn't survive the march through Moscow, who fell somewhere along the way and were left behind. You carry them all now. Not their bodies, their memories. The simple fact that they existed. That's the only immortality any of us get, isn't it? Being remembered. Having someone who knew us who can say, yes, he was real, he lived, he mattered. You wonder how many of the 400,000 have no one left to remember them. How many will simply vanish from history, their names forgotten, their stories untold. Too many, far too many. August comes, then September. The summer heat fades into autumn chill. You work, you eat, you sleep. The routine becomes everything, a framework that holds you together when your mind wants to fly apart. Some men don't make it, not from violence or starvation, just from giving up. You see it in their eyes first, a light going out, a decision being made somewhere deep inside, and then, a few days later, they're gone. Slipped away in the night, their bodies found in the morning, no obvious cause except the loss of will to continue. You refuse to let that happen to you. Not because you're braver or stronger than them. You're not. But somewhere inside you, there's still a spark, a stubborn flicker that won't go out. Home. That's what it is. The idea of home. Bavaria. The mountains. Your mother's face. The life you had before all of this. It might not exist anymore. The war is still raging and Germany is losing. And who knows what will be left when it's finally over. But the idea of it, the possibility of it, that's enough. That's what keeps you going. One day in late September, a new group of prisoners arrives. They're from the Western Front, captured in France after something called D-Day, an Allied invasion that happened back in June while you were fighting for your life in Belarus. You didn't even know about it until now. The whole world was changing, history was being made, and you were too busy trying not to die to notice. The new prisoners have stories, different stories from yours, but the same ending. Defeat, capture, the long march into captivity. One of them, a corporal from Bavaria like you, sits with you one evening. He's from a town maybe 50 kilometers from your own village. Different valley, same mountains. Strange. Isn't it? He says. We went all the way around the world to end up in the same place. You almost laugh. Almost. It's the closest you've come to laughing in months. What's it like back home, you ask? Before he was captured, he might have heard something, might have news. He shrugs. Bad. The cities are being bombed. The factories are running out of materials. Everyone knows we're losing, even if no one says it out loud. And the people? Scared. Tired. Ready for it to be over? You nod. You understand that feeling. You've been living it for months. The corporal looks at you. Really looks, taking in your hollow cheeks and your haunted eyes and all the invisible scars you carry now. You were in the east, he says. It's not a question. Bagration. He winces. The name has reached even the Western Front, it seems. A word that means disaster, defeat, the beginning of the end. I'm sorry, he says. You're not sure what he's apologizing for. Being lucky enough to fight in France instead of Belarus? Surviving when so many didn't? Just the general tragedy of everything? It doesn't matter. You accept the apology anyway. It's the thought that counts. Winter comes early that year. Or maybe it just feels that way. The camp gets colder. The rations get thinner. Men huddle together for warmth, sharing body heat because there's not enough fuel to keep the barracks properly heated. You survive, day by day, week by week, putting one foot in front of the other, the same way you did during the retreat. That's the secret, you've realized. There is no secret, no trick, no technique, no special wisdom that gets you through. You just keep going, keep breathing, keep refusing to give up. And eventually, somehow, you make it. News of the war's end reaches the camp in May of 1945. Germany has surrendered. Hitler is dead. The fighting is over. You stand in the yard with the other prisoners, listening to the announcement on the loudspeakers, Soviet voices triumphant declaring victory. Around you, men react in different ways. Some weep, some cheer, strange as that seems. Some just stand there in silence, trying to process what it means. You're one of the silent ones. The war is over. But what does that mean for you? You're still a prisoner, still behind wire, still thousands of kilometers from home. The fighting has stopped, but your captivity continues. It will be years before you find out how many. Years of labor camps and transfers and the slow, grinding machinery of Soviet bureaucracy. Some men from your barracks will be released quickly. Others will die in captivity, so close to freedom but never quite reaching it. You don't know yet which category you'll fall into, but right now, in this moment, you let yourself feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Hope, not certainty, not confidence, just hope. The small, fragile belief that maybe, someday, you'll see those mountains again. It's enough. It has to be enough. The stars that night are bright. You lie on your bunk, too restless to sleep, and watch them through the small window above your head. The same stars that have followed you this whole journey. Constant, unchanged. Eric is asleep in the bunk below, his breathing slow and steady. He's going to make it, you think. He's young and strong and has that same stubborn spark you recognized in yourself. You think about all the bunks in all the barracks and all the camps scattered across the Soviet Union. Hundreds of thousands of men lying awake like you, looking at these same stars, wondering what comes next. You're part of something larger than yourself. A moment in history, a turning point that future generations will study and analyze and try to understand. But that's not how it feels from the inside. From the inside, it just feels like life. Messy and painful and uncertain, full of small moments that add up to something you can't see the shape of yet. Maybe that's how it always is. Maybe the people living through history never recognize it as history. They're too busy surviving. The night deepens. The camp grows quiet. Your eyes are heavy now. the exhaustion of the day, the weight of the year, all of it pressing down. You let yourself drift, and as sleep begins to take you, your mind wanders back to that morning in June, the quiet forest, the fog in the trees, the moment before everything changed. You were a different person then, younger, somehow, even though it was only months ago, still believing in things that have since crumbled to dust. Now you're something else, something harder and softer at the same time, broken in ways that might never fully heal, but still here, still breathing, still carrying the memories of everyone who didn't make it. That has to mean something. You hope it means something. The stars wheel slowly overhead, the same eternal dance they've been doing since long before humans existed to watch them. They'll keep dancing long after you're gone, but for now, you're here, alive. One small consciousness in an infinite universe somehow still flickering, and that you decide is enough. Your eyes close, your breathing slows, and somewhere in the space between waking and sleeping, you find yourself back in Bavaria. Walking through mountain meadows, wildflowers brushing against your legs, the air clean and cool and sweet. Franz is there, Kurt too. All of them, whole and unharmed, laughing at something you can't quite hear. It's just a dream, you know that. But for a little while, you let yourself believe it's real. For a little while, you're home. The night wraps around you like a blanket. The sounds of the camp fade away. The weight of everything you've been through settles into something almost peaceful. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new uncertainties, the long road home, however many years it takes. But that's tomorrow. Right now, there's just this. The quiet, the dark, the slow drift into dreams. You've earned this rest. After everything, you've earned at least this much. So let it come. Let the world fall away. Let the dreams take you somewhere gentle and